let's talk about scheduling. It is not as big a deal in the Senate as it is in the House. The House has a lot more people. Scheduling is a much bigger deal. And they vote on rules at the beginning of each session, but these have been pretty consistent. One, the no member of the Texas House of Representatives can talk about a bill for longer than 10 minutes. That's their limit. The House Calendars Committee, though, decides when bills will be discussed. Who appoints the members of the House Calendars Committee? The Speaker of the House. If it is a bill that the Speaker of the House does not like, they are going to shove that bill at the end of the 140 days. And they can do that and nobody can do anything about it. So the Calendars Committee has a lot of control. They can also, if it's a big important issue, they will give it a low number. So you see HB1, HB2, they reserve the really low numbers up through 5 or 6 usually for the big important bills, and they talk about those first because the Calendars Committee puts them first because they match the policy priorities of the Speaker of the House, the head cheerleader. So the major controversial legislation is controlled by the Speaker and Calendar Committee chair. I just wanted to put in other words what that meant. In the Senate, scheduling is a little different. Rules over the years have basically said this. As soon as a bill makes it through the committee, then that bill goes on the calendar. So a lot of time, what was happening was senators were playing this little game. They would hurry up and pass some really strange legislation in their committee and get it put on the calendar. And it would be about something that nobody wanted to talk about. That is called a blocking bill. So you would put this out and then it would be on the calendar and nobody wanted to talk about that. So there is a way to get around somebody sending this crazy bill out of committee. If you don't want to talk about that one next, then you can request a suspension of the rule. The rule is that you take bills in order. Suspension of the rule, in the last 2 legislative sessions has gone up to a 3/5 vote. You have to have 3/5 of the Texas legislature vote to take another bill out of order. And before that, when I first started teaching, it was always 2/3, but they raised it to 3/5. And so there may be a Senate Calendar Committee, but they don't do much because the way that it is designed, the bills just whatever comes out of committee next, that's the one that's being discussed, unless somebody wants to take one out of order and then they request a suspension of the rule. And if they get a 3/5 vote in the Senate, then they can take a bill out of order. All right. So in those committees, they have looked at a bill, they have marked it up, they've changed the wording, they have had hearings where they have people come and testify, yes, this is great, or no, I don't want it. Anybody can go and testify at a House or Senate hearing. They have to give notice. Um, and once they have looked at the bill, they marked it up, then they in the committee vote on whether or not they want everybody to look at this bill. If it gets a majority vote in the committee, then it goes to the floor. The floor is everybody. All 150 members get to look at this and decide whether or not this is actually going to become law. So once the bill goes to the calendar committee gives it a date. The calendar committee, the rules committee decides how long, basically how many people get to talk about it. The speaker appoints people to be floor leaders, and the floor leaders lead the debate. The speaker presides, they have this huge gavel. And then the floor leaders basically recognize people and get the debates going. And so since you don't have a whole bunch of tools at your disposal, one of the things that is very common, and again, you probably would have seen this in the legislative history when you were looking at bills, they would say point of order. What they're doing is saying that somebody has done something wrong. Some rule hasn't been followed. And so they're trying to say, well, we don't need to be debating this bill because you didn't dot your I on page 2. And so you have to stop and address the point of order, vote on whether or not it makes sense or not, before you can proceed. So if you are in the minority and you know this bill is probably going to pass, you use points of order to slow it down. Another thing that is very common is that you get together your buddies and you everybody puts their 10 minutes, because remember, members of the House of Representatives have 10-minute limits. They stack together their 10 minutes so that they just keep talking and delay the vote. Most of the time in the House of Representatives, they have these little machines and they vote on the machines. If it's not a huge deal, they will do a roll call. Or sometimes if it is a huge deal, they will do a roll call. But most of the time they use machines and they do the recorded votes, and it shows up on this huge screen. In the Senate, things are slightly different. So number one, the lieutenant governor presides. That's not very different. There's no floor leaders in the Senate. For the most part, they have done all of the work in committee, so they don't debate as much as they do in the House. But they can. They do not have time limits in the Senate. So filibuster is a tool that is used when you want to delay. We still have filibuster in Texas. It still requires, I think 2/3 of the legislature has to vote to get you to stop. Otherwise, you can talk for as long as you would like, as long as you stay on topic, and as long as you are physically standing. The most recent and most famous filibuster that we've had in modern times was Wendy Davis. About 3 legislative sessions ago, when the legislature was passing HB 2, which was was going to have some very strict limits on abortion rights in the state. Wendy Davis talked for 13 hours straight. She put on some tennis shoes. She had a catheter installed so that she didn't have to leave to go relieve herself. And successfully filibustered till the end of a special session, so that they did not have time to vote on the bill. But the governor called another special session. It ended up passing in that session. And then eventually the bill was partly overturned by the United States government as being an undue burden. But that made national news, and Wendy Davis became more of a national name because of her filibuster. It's a big deal to actually have them. Most of the time, they use the filibuster as a tool to say, if you don't change this part of this, then I'm going to filibuster. So they use it as a negotiation tool, the threat of it as a negotiation tool. Every now and then, a bill makes it through the House and the Senate, and it's on the same subject. But they have different provisions in it. If that happens, only one bill can go to the governor. And so the Speaker of the House appoints 5 members. The Lieutenant Governor appoints 5 members, and they form what is called a conference committee. They get together and compare the 2 bills, see if they can come up with one bill that everybody in both chambers can agree to. So they may strengthen it, they may take stuff out, they may weaken it. Every now and then they get in the conference committee and they can't get it resolved at all, and it just stops there. If they are able to come up with a resolution, they will issue a conference committee report. Then it will go and then back out to the House and the Senate, and they will vote on the conference committee version of this bill. So I have alluded quite a bit to the process of how a bill becomes a law. This is an essay question on the test. This is an essay question that everyone will have. This that we are looking at with these 13 steps is very bare bones. I have talked about a lot more, and the book even talks about more that happens in each stage. This starts with introduction in the House. We know that bills can be introduced in the House or the Senate, but for convenience sake, they decided on this list to start with introduction in the House. There are 2 types of bills that can only be introduced in the House. Otherwise, doesn't matter House or Senate. If it's a House bill, it'll say HB 1292. If it's a Senate bill, it'll be SB 1292. But if it is an appropriations bill, if it has to do with spending money, the Constitution, Texas Constitution, says that those can only be introduced in the House of Representatives. Tax bills, by tradition, are introduced in the House, but that is not in the Constitution. So a bill is introduced, the bill is given a number, then the bill is assigned to a committee. In the committee, what is House committee action? They can mark up the bill, they can pigeonhole the bill, they can have open hearings, take testimony on the bill, they can study it, then they will vote in the committee. That's what committee action is. It's more than just committee action. So I need you to define, what are those steps? What do they do? Mark up, have hearings, vote, And if it gets a majority vote, they issue a report. The report goes to the House Calendars Committee, where the Calendar Committee decides when the bill will be heard. Once the date that the Calendars Committee has given comes up, then it goes to the floor of the House for debate. The Speaker of the House is going to preside. He's going to appoint floor leaders. They're going to have debate. And then where people will be introducing points of order, where they'll be chubbing, where they will talk for their 10 minutes for and against the bill. Sometimes they will amend the bill. That's another tactic that is used. Let's just change this word right here. And then eventually they will vote. Has to get a majority vote. And at that point, just like in the United States legislature, the bill has to go to the other chamber, where it is introduced. It is given a new number. It is assigned to a new committee by if it was introduced in the House, it will go to the Senate and it will be assigned to a committee by the Lieutenant Governor. If it was introduced in the Senate, it will go to the House. It will be given a number and then assigned to a committee by the Speaker of the House. In the Senate committee, they will do the same thing. They can pigeonhole it and put it down. They can take it up, take testimony, mark it up, and vote. And then it will go to the Senate floor in the order that it came up, unless someone asks to suspend the rule and take one out of order. And it does require a 3/5 vote. Not every bill goes to conference committee. Only bills where the House version and the Senate version differ require a conference committee. If they do that, then they mark it up. They issue a conference committee report. It goes back to be voted on by both chambers. If it is approved by both chambers, then it is ready. This bill is ready to go to the governor. The lieutenant governor signs it. The Speaker of the House signs it, and it goes to the governor's desk. Governor has 3 choices. The governor can sign the bill, and now you're a law. Oh yeah. Or the governor can veto the bill. Or the governor cannot sign the bill. Now, what happens in Texas if the governor does not sign a bill? Bottom line, it becomes law without the governor's signature within 10 days. If the governor gets the bill and the legislative session runs out before his or her 10 days is up, then the governor gets 20 days. But the governor still has to either sign it or veto it or not sign it. And the governor doesn't sign it, it becomes law anyway. So the governor of Texas does not have pocket veto, has to actually veto the bill. If the bill is vetoed and the legislature is still in session, then it goes back to the House and Senate to see if they can override the bill. If they decide that they're going to override the bill, you have to have a 2/3 vote. That has not changed. 2/3 vote to override a governor's veto. This does not happen very often because most of the time governors only veto bills once the legislative session is out, so that nobody can do anything about it. Greg Abbott, even though he has a Republican majority in the House and Senate, has vetoed quite a few bills. It doesn't seem to affect his popularity. when Rick Perry first became governor, he vetoed quite a few bills, but didn't tell the legislature he was going to veto them, and they were angry with him. Angry with him.